Captain Alina Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Meridian, eyes locked on the stars shimmering across the main view screen. And now they stood as members of the sprawling Galactic Confederacy. Yet even now, that first awe never left her. The infinite black stretched before her, vast and silent between worlds. The Meridian wasn't the largest ship Earth had ever launched, but it ranked among the fastest. Her 60-person crew had been voyaging for 8 months now, charting new systems and scanning for habitable planets. Important work, Alina thought, but more routine with each passing day. "Captain, I'm getting strange readings," said Lieutenant Sarah Kim from her station. Young but brilliant Sarah processed sensor anomalies faster than anyone Alina had served with. She walked to the console, watching as complex graphs and numbers flickered across the display. Alina couldn't make sense of them. What kind? Of strange metal, Captain. A lot of it, but not behaving like natural asteroids. Sarah pointed to a tight cluster of objects. See the spacing? Too structured. Asteroids don't align like this. Lena's pulse ticked up. Unusual formations in space could mean discovery or danger. Often both. Distance. 2 hours at max speed. They're orbiting the fourth planet's belt, Alina considered. Protocol from the Confederacy said anomalies must be reported immediately, but protocol also mandated threat assessment. If these were a danger to human life, she couldn't ignore them. "Adjust course toward the signal," she ordered. Shields up. Weapons online. The next 2 hours crawled. Her crew ran every diagnostic and scan they could, but nothing made sense. The structures were artificial, no question, but enormous. Each one was over twice the size of Earth's. Most powerful warships, more than 200 of them, drifted silently, like a graveyard fleet. "Captain," came the voice of Marcus Chen, chief engineer. He'd been patching ships longer than Alina had been in uniform. "These readings are wrong. No vessel should generate this much energy while stationary." "Maybe they're not stationary," Alina said quietly. A knot of dread began to form in her chest. When they closed the distance and finally saw the shapes clearly, her breath caught. They were Shipsaline ships, but nothing familiar. Their hulls were curved, organic, smooth like they'd been grown instead of built. Metal shimmered with an inner light, and strange crystalline protrusions jutted out like frozen lightning. Even through space dust, they radiated a strange beauty and something terrifying. "My God," whispered Dr. James Wright, the science officer. "Captain, these vessels are ancient. Look at the micrometeoroid pitting these ships have been. Adrift for millennia, maybe longer." Alina studied their formation. They weren't scattered. They were arranged defensively, like guardians frozen in time. "Any life signs?" "None, Captain," Sarah replied. "But the cores are still running. All of them." So the crews were gone, but the ships remained powered. Alina made her call, assemble a boarding team. "We're going in, Captain," Marcus said, cautious. "Shouldn't we alert command first?" "This is first contact tech. They'll want full analysis." She looked out at the ancient vessels. Something about them whispered through the void. Not a threat, but a calling. A question begging for an answer. "We'll report it," she said, "after we know what we're reporting." 3 hours later, the boarding team was ready. Alina selected her members with Marcus for systems, Sarah for sensors, Dr. Wright for science, and for armed security officers under Sergeant Rodriguez. Each wore a sealed suit with 6 hours of air. As the shuttle peeled away from the Meridian, approaching the largest alien vessel, Alina felt small. She'd seen supercarriers before, but this ship made them feel like toys. It loomed like a dormant Leviathan. Inside, the corridor branched in every direction. Strange symbols etched the walls, glyphs that shimmered and twisted when stared at directly. Her eyes watered. "There," Marcus said, indicating a circular section. "This looks like it could be an airlock." The alien mechanism stirred as they approached, lights flickering across panels, forming strange sequences, possibly writing. Without sound, the massive airlock door slid open, revealing a chamber that dwarfed their entire shuttle. It was like stepping into the lungs of a slumbering god. The same fluid script lined the walls, dancing in unreadable patterns. Outside, the moment the outer hatch sealed, a soft hiss filled the chamber as atmosphere flooded in. Lena's suit sensors blinked, treating showed it was perfectly breathable. For humans, that's not possible, Dr. Wright muttered. How does a derelict ship maintain ideal atmospheric conditions for thousands of years? Lena didn't respond. Her eyes were fixed on the inner door, which had just silently slid open, revealing a corridor that seemed to stretch endlessly toward the ship's core. The hall was vast, made for beings far larger than any human. The ceiling soared over 5 meters above them, and the hallway was wide enough for a dozen people to walk shoulder to shoulder. Yet everything was immaculate, pristine, like the crew had just stepped away and might return any moment. Captain Sarah said, her voice slightly unsteady. I'm detecting enormous computational structures throughout this vessel. They're still active. It's like the ship itself is thinking. They continued forward, following unreadable signs Alina hoped led toward a command center. The deeper they went, the more overwhelming the architecture became, beautiful, humbling, and strangely mournful. Whoever built this had mastered concepts of space and time far beyond human science. When they finally arrived at the command center, the sight stole Elena's breath. It was a flawless sphere, the controls flowing like frozen liquid across its curved interior walls. At its center stood a chair massive, designed for a species much larger than any human. Captain, over here, Dr. Wright called, hunched over a glowing panel. These data cores are still running. If I can bridge our portable systems with... Theirs do it, Elena said. There was no turning back now. The moment their portable computer linked to the alien system, the chamber came alive. Holographic displays burst into the air, filling the room with star maps that spanned the entire galaxy. But this wasn't the galaxy they knew. This was something older. Thousands of civilizations, stretched across the spiral arms, interconnected with trade routes, communication webs, and settled systems. Elena stared in stunned silence. Captain, Sarah said in a hushed tone, based on the time stamps, this map is over 4 million years old. 4 million years ago, the galaxy had thrived. Now, only a few dozen known species remained in the Confederacy. Most of the stars still shone, but their planets were quiet, abandoned, dead. What had happened? As if responding to her thoughts. New displays lit up, logs, final transmissions. Whoever had commanded this ship had left their last records behind. Elena couldn't read the alien language, but the flowing script conveyed raw emotion, panic, urgency, despair, and finally, grim resolve. They were running, Elena whispered. This fleet, it wasn't a mission of exploration or conquest. It was escape. But even as she said it, the truth shifted in her mind. They hadn't been protecting themselves. The fleet had arranged itself like a shield. They were guarding something they valued more than their own lives. Elena slowly turned, taking in every detail of the command center, as if imprinting it on her soul. Whatever truths these ships held, she knew they had already changed her. The moment she stepped aboard, her life diverged from what it had been. There was no going back. Somewhere deep within the vessel's core, systems stirred. Dormant code. Flickered. Ancient subroutines, silent for eons, awakened in response to the presence of life. The test was about to begin. For the next 4 hours, Elena and her team explored deeper into the vessel. Every chamber dwarfed anything designed by humans. The layout of the ship felt grown rather than constructed, the walls flowing in soft curves and impossible angles. Strange alloys pulsed with patterns that shifted when seen from the corner of the eye, vanishing when directly observed in what appeared to be an engine room. Marcus pressed his gloved hand against a metallic surface. Captain, he said, puzzled, this alloy's warm. But my scanner reads it as stone-cold dead for millennia. Feels alive in here, Dr. Wright added, examining a nearby console covered in alien glyphs. But there's no organic trace. No cells, no heat signatures, nothing. And yet, like the ship is sleeping, Elena said. She felt it too. This wasn't just a vessel. It was something more. Something aware. Sarah, she asked quietly, Any luck with? Any progress on those data cores? Lena asked. Sarah looked up from her station, fatigue in her eyes after 2 hours of constant decoding. Fragments, Captain. The system's ancient, but it's trying to help us understand. She turned the screen. It displayed images tall, elegant beings with forearms and faces that seemed to shift emotion, even in still frames. They walked through floating cities suspended in the clouds of gas giants. Their architecture shimmered with impossible beauty. The computer calls them the architects, Sarah said. They're the ones who built this ship. She tapped a key, and the image changed to a timeline, one that made Elena's chest tighten. Architects had not lived alone in the stars. At their height, thousands of civilizations thrived across the galaxy. Species traded freely. Knowledge flowed between worlds like blood through veins. The galaxy had once been a living network of harmony and progress. Then the line began to collapse, one by one. Planets stopped transmitting. Entire sectors went silent. The galactic web began to fray. What happened? Lena asked quietly. Doctor. Wright found part of the answer. Captain, he said, gesturing to a separate core. You'll want to see this. The hologram lit up again, this time with annotated text and images. The architects weren't just another civilization, Wright said. They called themselves gardeners. Gardeners, Alina echoed, confused. They helped younger species grow. When a civilization discovered fire, cracked flight, built its first ship, they guided them. Quietly, carefully. They offered tools. Seeded knowledge stopped wars before they started. They were protectors, Sarah said. But distant. Ones like teachers who never reveal their teaching. The displays shifted, showing the architects visiting barren planets. It's uplifting new life, gifting star charts to fledgling explorers. Alina watched as these ancient caretakers shaped the galaxy not as rulers, but as quiet guardians. But something went wrong, Marcus said, gesturing to another display. What broke it all? The answer came from the ship's final log. Alina stood still as the room dimmed and a series of flickering, damaged entries began to play. The message was fragmented, unmistakable in tone. Fear, urgency, despair. Something had come from the galactic core. Something no one had expected, and nothing could stop. The architects named it simply the Devourers. Alina couldn't parse every word of the foreign script, but she could feel the terror behind them. The visuals told the rest. The Devourers didn't just destroy ships or cities. They left behind nothing. Space where they passed became lifeless. Not just in body, but in spirit. Entire systems lost the very potential for intelligent life. Stars dimmed, worlds faded, civilization became impossible. They consume everything, Dr. Wright whispered, not just mass. They erase the structure that lets order exist. Memory, language, culture, even the idea of connection. Lena shivered. Heat suit or not. How do you fight something like that? You don't, right? Said End. The logs confirmed it. The architects had known they couldn't win. Their science, vast as it was, couldn't halt the End. So they chose a different path. They gathered what remained of their kind. They collected the art, the music, the ideas, and dreams of every species they had nurtured. They encoded it. All aboard their greatest ships, not as weapons, as arcs. This isn't a battleship, Alina said, her voice low. It's a vault, a cathedral, a record of everything they were, everything they saved. Sarah's computer beeped softly. A final message had been decoded. Captain, look. The words displayed on the screen rendered in perfect human language to those who come after. To those who carry the flame we could not. The burden passes to you now. Do not let the light die. Alina stared at the message in silence. Her throat felt tight. The architects had not run. They had chosen to remember. Anything new from those data cores? Lena asked. Sarah glanced up from her portable terminal. Eyes heavy with concentration after 2 hours of digging through alien code. I'm getting fragments, Captain. The system's old ancient, but it's trying to translate. Look at this. Turned the screen toward Elena. It displayed visuals of tall, elegant beings with forearms and faces that subtly shifted. Expression, even in still images. They moved through cities suspended in the clouds of gas giants. Their architecture flowed like water. Their art defied words. The computer refers to them as the architects, Sarah said. They built this fleet. She tapped a key. Screen changed now? A timeline. Lena's chest tightened as she saw it. The architects hadn't been alone. At their height, the galaxy teemed with life. Thousands of species existed in harmony, spanning millions of systems. Trade flourished. Knowledge moved freely. The stars had once been united by cooperation and growth. Then, slowly, the line broke. One planet, then 10, then hundreds. Systems fell silent. Entire networks vanished. What happened to them all? Alina asked quietly. Dr. Wright spoke from another console. Captain, I've found more. You need to see this. He activated a new data set. Chamber dimmed again, and images formed in the air. The architects weren't conquerors, right? Said they saw themselves as gardeners. Alina blinked. Gardeners? They nurtured younger species, Wright explained. When a civilization discovered fire or achieved spaceflight, the architects quietly offered guidance. They provided just enough knowledge. Protected peaceful species. Curbed aggression. They kept the galactic balance. Around them, the displays shifted, showing the architects visiting new worlds, seeding ideas, offering tools. But always with care. Always indirectly. They were like invisible teachers, Sarah said, helping without ever letting their students know they were being taught. Lena watched in silence. It was all too perfect, too vast. Marcus pointed to another section of the hologram. But if they had such control, what went wrong? The answer came in pieces. Final logs. Dying transmissions. Shattered recordings from the ship's last hours. Alina watched, heart heavy as the display showed flickering scenes of panic and fire. The last moments of a civilization. Something had come from the center of the galaxy. Something unstoppable. The architects had called them the Devourers. Alina couldn't understand every symbol, but she didn't need to. The images said enough. Wherever the Devourers passed, they didn't just kill, they erased. Space turned cold and empty, not simply devoid of life, but of the potential for life. They didn't just destroy matter, Dr. Wright whispered. They unraveled civilization. They erased the patterns that make intelligent life possible. The idea chilled Alina to her core. How do you fight something like that? You don't? Wright said softly. And that, the data revealed, was the truth the architects had accepted. They couldn't stop the Devourers, but they could preserve something. They assembled their greatest ships. They filled them with everything: art, science, philosophy, technology, the memories of every species they'd ever helped. A legacy in motion. This isn't a warship, Alina said slowly. It's a vault, a museum, a memory capsule for a galaxy that's gone. Sarah's console pinged. A final message had translated. Captain, you need to read this. Words formed on the display, clear, unmistakable, and rendered in flawless human language. To those who come after. To those who carry the flame when we no longer can. The burden is yours now. Do not let the light die. Alina stared at it for a long time. The architects hadn't fled. They had made a choice. Everything seemed still even Dr. Wright, who usually got tense in unfamiliar scenarios. What kind of test is this? Not one of intelligence, said the custodian. Your species is clever enough. Not one of strength. We're brave. Enough. This will test your hearts, the choices you make when everything is on the line. The world around them shifted. Alina was suddenly aboard a ship she didn't recognize. Outside the main screen, a vibrant planet gleamed Cadiz. Light's life. It wasn't Earth. Tall, thin beings with blue skin and wide eyes lived below. This is Carilax Prime, said the custodian. It's home to 8 billion Carilaxians, a peaceful people. They've harmed no one. But their sun is dying, collapsing. Faster than predicted, in 6 hours, it will explode. Lena scanned the alien displays. Evacuation ships rose like sparks, but there weren't enough. Most would perish. Here's your choice, said the custodian. You have two ships. It's one which can carry 2 million Karalaxians to safety. The Meridian, your own vessel. Crew aboard. But there's a complication. The display shifted, showing both ships. The Karalaxian ship was larger, but slow. The Meridian was fast, nimble, but limited. Radiation waves from the dying star are approaching, the custodian said. If the larger ship goes first, it will be destroyed mid-flight. But if the Meridian flies ahead and absorbs the first wave, it will buy the larger ship enough time to escape. But the Meridian will be destroyed. Your entire crew still lives gone. Alina turned to her officers. They had all heard. Silence fell. She saw fear in their eyes, but also something more resolve. How long do we have to decide? She asked. You already have, said Dr. Wright quietly. We all have, Lena nodded. The choice had been clear from the beginning. We shield the evacuation ship, she said. The simulation showed the Meridian intercepting the radiation wave. Her ship died in a flash. She felt the loss like it was real. Tears welled up despite knowing it wasn't reality. Why? The custodian asked. Why trade 64 to million strangers? Alina wiped her face. 'Cause it's right. Because they want to live too. 'Cause someone has to do what's right, especially when it hurts. The illusion faded. They stood again on the real Meridian bridge. The custodian bowed slightly. The architects gave the same answer when we posed this question, but there are more tests. The second was different, no less difficult. Alina saw her crew scattered across a failing space station. In a separate zone, each zone had a key task. The station would only survive if all tasks were completed. But there was a twist. Only one crew member could become captain of a new exploration ship upon return to Earth. The rest would get ordinary assignments. Each member could either excel and risk losing the promotion, or sabotage others to increase their own chances. Alina watched their decisions through camera feeds. Marcus optimized his section and helped Sarah improve hers, even knowing it might cost him the role. Dr. Wright made all his findings public, no secrets. Sergeant Rodriguez, who wasn't even eligible, went above and beyond to support the rest. Your people chose collaboration over personal gain, said the custodian. Even when it meant sacrifice. Rare. Not really, said Alina. We rise together. Together, or we fail together. That's how humans work. The third test was the most grueling of all. The custodian revealed the truth of the devourers, beings not of destruction alone, but of pure, ravenous hunger. They didn't merely wipe out civilizations, they devoured the very possibility of future life. After they passed through a star system, it didn't recover. Ever. Not in a million years. Not at all. They have consumed half the galaxy, the custodian said. In 50 years, they will reach Confederacy space. When that happens, every species you know will die. Every world empty, forever, including Earth. Alina felt a deep nausea churn inside her. Can they be stopped? The architects tried for a millennium. We slowed them. Yes, but we failed to halt them. Perhaps a new approach will succeed, perhaps not. But someone must try, or all life will end. The custodian showed them what the galaxy would look like once the devourer is finished. It's dark, cold, quiet, dead. This is your final choice, the custodian said. You may take some of our technology and flee. Hide Earth somewhere, the devourers may never search. Save your kind and let the rest face annihilation. Or, he paused, eyes narrowing. You may accept the full inheritance and the burden. Come what the architects once were. Defend everyone, knowing it may cost you everything. Alina turned to her crew. She saw it again, fear, yes, but something else behind it. Steel. Will. If we run and hide, she said, how long before they find us?
Unknown.
Custodian replied, 1,000 years, perhaps 10,000. But eventually, they will find all that exists. Alina nodded grimly. Hiding would only postpone extinction. And if we choose to accept the inheritance, you will gain tools to fight. The knowledge of 1 million fallen civilizations, vessels that traverse stars as your shuttle crosses planets, weapons that wield the power-binding atoms. But the cost, he hesitated. You must protect those who cannot defend themselves. You will face decisions that break your heart, and you may still lose. Lena closed her eyes. She thought of Earth blue. Oceans, swirling clouds, humanity scattered across colonies full of hope. Of other species, young and naive. Unaware of the nightmare heading their way, the architects faced this decision too, Alina whispered. They chose to fight, even knowing they'd lose so someone else might one day fight better. They inhaled slowly. Her crew had already risked themselves for strangers. Humanity had always been stubborn, reckless, brave. We accept, she said. We accept the inheritance and all that comes with it. The custodian smiled, for the first time in all their trials. Then let us begin your education. Alina felt something truly shift. The bridge of the meridian erupted with new displays, new systems. Information flowed through their computers like rivers through canyons. Knowledge once locked in silence for millennia now surged into human hands. Captain Sarah said, eyes wide, our systems, they're syncing. I'm seeing star charts of every inhabited world, past and present. The custodian's form became clearer, more tangible. Now that you've accepted, he said, I can speak the full truth. Humanity was not chosen by chance. We've been watching you for 300 years, since you first left your home system. Lena felt a cold weight settle in her chest. Watching us? Why? The custodian gestured again, filling the air with shimmering images of alien races. Because you are different in a way that matters. Most intelligent life behaves predictably. Faced with extinction, they flee. Given power, they hoard it. When threatened, they surrender or vanish. Alina saw familiar species, peaceful Confederacy members, all of them reasonable. All of them the type to yield when outmatched. Humans are different, the custodian continued. You possess a flaw others see as madness. When someone you care for is in danger, you become lethal. When odds are impossible, you grow defiant. When told something cannot be done, you try anyway. Images flickered human history in raw form. Soldiers holding impossible lines, explorers sailing into oceans filled with legend and risk. Scientists chasing answers no one believed existed, others call it recklessness, said the custodian. The architects saw something else. Hope, reinforced by will. The drive to fight for others even in certain defeat. Lena remembered the trials. Each one demanded sacrifice over safety, duty over comfort. You needed someone irrational enough to resist the devourers? Yes, the custodian admitted. But even more than that, his expression turned somber. The architects tried logic. They built weapons that shattered stars, shields that protected entire systems. It was not enough. The devourers are not mere killers. They are entropy made aware. They cannot be defeated through force alone. Alina narrowed her eyes. Then how can they be defeated? Perhaps they can't, but they can be resisted, slowed. And if they are delayed long enough, if someone fights hard enough for long enough, perhaps a path to true victory will appear. The custodian shifted the display again. No longer war, but peace, construction, care, connection, alien hospitals, human-built. Schools on distant moons. Doctors from Earth's healing species they had never met. Teachers guiding alien children. Through language and science, the true inheritance, the custodian said quietly, is not ships or weapons. It is. Devourers aren't just a force to be fought, they're a lesson to be understood, the custodian replied. Alina stood in silence, absorbing the scale of what they faced. Millions of civilizations gone, only 47 spacefaring species remained. Yet, here she was, offered a role not of conqueror, but of caretaker, builder, teacher. Then we do both, she said quietly. We fight and we plant, we bleed and we build. The custodian bowed its head, and the architects were right, to believe in you. Long before humans ever left Earth, she could summon engineering blueprints for machines that defied known physics. and still it felt overwhelming. Alina turned to Dr. Wright, who stood beside a console displaying alien script slowly translating. "Into Terran Standard, how do we even begin using all this?" she asked. He gave a quiet smile. "One step at a time. Just because we inherited everything doesn't mean we have to use it all at once." Alina looked back at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Devourers were moving, faster than predicted. The clock was ticking. But for the first time, humanity wasn't blind. They had the map, the tools, and the will. Given leadership roles, the Solari would insist on neutrality zones.
How?
And the Varnock, they won't leave their homeworld. Not for anything. Alina listened to each objection, nodding. Then, we give everyone something they care about, something they'll lose if they don't act. Show them the projections. Show them what happens if they do nothing. She looked at the expanding wave again, that slow erasure of everything life had ever built. And then we offer them a place. In something greater than survival, a future where we don't just escape death, we outgrow it. The crew exchanged glances. It sounded impossible. But then, so did everything humanity had already done, shaped slowly, then all at once. What began as a desperate gamble turned into a coordinated effort, unlike anything in recorded history. Dozens of species, once rivals or strangers, now shared blueprints, labor, and dreams. The Gelante managed their isolated migration pods. The Varnock finally consented to evacuate after Alina promised to replicate their planetary biosphere exactly route for route, storm for storm. Even the reluctant joined when the first Outer Rim stars went dark. By then, entire systems were already moving, planets folded into wormholes, civilizations slipping beyond the Devourer's grasp. A future carved from the void. Humanity had led them there. Ask ChatGPT.